let's say you're sick, you're not able to get up, then that shurut will be dropped. Anytime you're not able to do something, like you have a sickness or anything of that sort, the condition will be dropped for you. So hopefully that's how you understand this. It's very, very simple. Is this part clear before we move on? Inshallah. All right, so the next one.
So like following an authority, for example, that's like, I'm trying to understand.
When you say following authority, what do you mean?
Well, like you said, the flight attendants told you to not do this.
Yeah, so if you are forced into something, that condition is going to be dropped upon you.
Some people say that's not forced. That sounds, I understand what you're saying.
By the way, I had a condition with Egyptian Air. I was trying to push myself through. They eventually gave in, but I don't know if you want to be going through that situation. If you want to fight it through like me, go ahead. But Qatar Airways, they literally had a huge signboard. I was like, okay, I don't want to do this every time. So when they kind of force you, there's also an issue of space sometimes. If you're going Kuwait Airways, if you're going Emirates, like it's I think the Emirates, there's space. They tell you, okay, you can pray here, and you can face what obviously the Emirates usually has. It tells you where the Qibla is. Sometimes you don't have that option. You guys clearly don't fly too much, looking at all your faces. But some airlines, they tell you literally where the Qibla is. One of them is Emirates. Turkish Airlines, if you're flying from the Middle East to within the Middle East, it tells you, but from the middle, let's say from Turkey to the US, everything disappears. You have no time. You have to make judgment based on like the sun, moon, whatever. That's how you do it. But inshallah, let's go to the next slide. Okay, two things. Yes.
Brother, you said about Awrah while you're praying. So, do you have any instruction for me while you're praying?
Oh yes. So subhanAllah, I forgot to tell males. My bad. My males also. I'll give a spectrum because Awrah is very important for males. So Awrah navel to knees is bare minimum. The Hanafis will include the knees. Imam Ahmad will say if you're able to cover the shoulder, it's an obligation for you to cover the shoulder. But all the other madhahib, navel to knees, they will not include the knees except for the Ahnaf. Except for the Hanafis, everybody will go navel to knees. The Hanbalis, Mu'tamad, will tell you if you're able to cover the shoulder, it is an obligation for you to cover the shoulder. So that's the Awrah for men. Hopefully that's clear.
So the socks thing that you brought up earlier was for sisters only.
Sisters only, not for men. Sorry. Yes.
I read that if you don't have sleeves, you cover your shoulders, it's fine. But if you have sleeves, we roll them up for wudu, you them down.
Yes. So it's makruh for you to be folding your sleeves in Salah, not outside. Outside Salah, nobody cares. In Salah, your clothes, your hair, everything should just be flowing in short. So let's say don't tie your hair or don't tie anything like. So everything should be free flowing. So hopefully that is your sleeves, let it open. Your pants, let it open. Okay.
So this is actually sorry. If they have like an abaya or like a boat that's long enough to cover the feet, they don't need to wear socks.
Yes.
Okay.
The goal is to cover.
Got it.
It doesn't have necessarily be a socks. Keep that in mind. I'll give you another one also. This is obviously you can write a thesis on this topic. And somebody asked me this. I mean, we mentioned this yesterday when I was at a masjid. Is that nowadays obviously people wear pants, right? Even sisters wear pants. So people go like, oh, how can a sister wear pants? So remember, we're talking about covering. We're not talking about like, oh, how tight it should be. So generally, scholars will tell you covering. Now, is it from good adab to wear pants or to wear certain clothes in the masjid is a totally different topic. But the bare minimum, generally, people will tell you, because even if I was wearing a kandura, most of you can see the shape of my shoulders. Or you can see, even if I'm doing ruku', I'm doing sujood, there is some shape you're able to see of a person's body. It will be better etiquette to wear loose clothes, but the bare minimum is to cover the awrah. This is the bare minimum. I'll just give you a scenario. If somebody is basically, especially for men, mashallah, they love to wear pants. So what is the most common thing I've seen sometimes is the pants, they drop and the shirt goes up, especially if he's in sujood or something. It's very common, very, very common. So does that make his salah invalid? Okay, let's. So if it is for a short stint, it's overlooked. Remember, anything yasir, anything that is, let's say you have a small piece of blood, it's always overlooked. You're not expected to make wudu again if it's just a small scratch. Same thing, if when he goes down for a small stint, it's exposed, he should cover it. But if it's exposed for a long period of time, it's invalid. Because then he's not fulfilling the shart of covering the awrah. Is that clear? Anything yasir is always overlooked in the deen.
Mercy.
The first look is fine. Some people say that the first look is okay, but if you do that.
Yeah, that's when you're sinful.
But how long is long? Because the only time that would happen would be
When you're doing
probably
sujood.
So if it happens at all, it's gonna stay for the whole sujood.
Yeah, so I mean, sujood is still considered, it depends on how long the person is doing sujood also. So this is generally what I recommend not to, especially some people wear shorts or low pants. Be very, very, ihtiyat fi deen wajib is something, a comment you'll find throughout the fiqh books is that taking precautions is an obligation upon the individual. So this is something you want to make sure that you're doing whenever you pray. So if you know you're wearing pants, either I try to make sure that my shirt is long enough or I just tuck it in and I pray. So there's no shubhat while I'm praying. If you're wearing shorts, in the Gulf, they would carry an izar with them. Basically the lower garment. In the Indo-Pakistan, they would call them lungis, or Bangladesh, they would just call them lungis. So it's basically it's a lower garment. They would fold it with them. Anytime they have to pray, they will tie it, finish the prayer, take it off, and they move on with their lives. This is what they like to do. Either you have, it is very common to wear 3/4. We call them 3/4 in the Gulf. I don't know. Here it's the short things. To wear it lower than your knee itself. So in that way, you're covered. So hopefully that covers all the questions back and forth. So if I were to ask you, what's the mu'tamad of awrah for a guy, what would it be? And what about shoulders?
If possible, yes.
That falls under your question.
Yes.
Imam Ahmad.
Imam Ahmad's position is to, if he has the capability to cover, he's going to cover. All right. So you're doing tahara from one thing, obviously. Tahara min al-najas, tahara min al-hadath. Najas is impurity. So obviously, when you have impurity in you, let's say you have blood or you have pus that's considered impure, or any sort of impurity from the two exits, you're supposed to cleanse yourself. لا يقبل الله صلاة أحدكم إذا أحدث حتى يتوضأ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not accept the salah of somebody if he is in a state of impurity until he does wudu. So your two things you're doing, tahara from the impurity and tahara min al-hadath is a state, basically what you're having. So whenever you're in, let's say you need to do wudu, you're in a state of hadath. You're in a state of minor impurity. If you have najasa, you're purifying from the impurity itself. So you don't need an intention for you to clean. Like for salah, you need to have an intention, I'm going to pray dhuhr or asr or maghrib. But to clean your impurity, you just wipe it off. You don't need any intention. And let's say the impurity got washed through rain, you're done. So hopefully that's clear. Can we move on?
We can give examples of what's najis, for example.
So that, inshallah, that's going to come.
That's
I think you guys might enjoy this sort of Sughra and Kubra. So this will cover all the questions. Okay. The purifying person, as we mentioned for the Salah itself, this again goes back to the Salah. The person has to be the mutahhir, the purifying person itself, Muslim, aqil, somebody who is sane. Mumayyiz is 7 years old. You cannot expect somebody, by the way, I have somebody who's 7, 8. At least in 7, they understand things like 0 and 1, i.e. they understand black and white. They don't understand spectrum usually. But once they hit puberty, they're able to digest general information way better. So mumayyiz is again, this is when this is a purifying person. Nawi, innamal amalu binniyat. You have to make intention, you're going to do wudu. Any act of ibadah, you have to make an intention. So wudu is an act of ibadah. So you make intention, you're doing wudu. The next one, there's 2 ways you purify yourself. Al-ma and turab. Turab is obviously tayammum. When you purify yourself with dust or say sand, nothing wet but dry. Ma obviously is water. So there's 2 things you purify yourself from. As-sughra and kubra. Sughra is your minor, kubra is your major purification. Mutahhir minhu, obviously minor impurities and major impurities. Major impurities will cover down the line, inshallah. Is this slide clear before we move on? This is pretty straightforward. Aqsamul ma'. So again, all right. Tuhur is basically purifying or purifier, however you want to define it. Tahir, there's two types of water. So technically, if tea falls on your shirt, it's called tahir. It's pure. Even if you don't clean it from your clothes, doesn't matter. So it's tahir. Tuhur is something pure and purifying. Let's say your tap water that you get, assuming it's clean, it's pure, i.e. it is pure in and of itself, and it's purifying for you because you're able to cleanse and you're able to remove the state of hadath from you. So it is pure and purifying, and it is in its original state. So when does the water transfer from tuhur to tahir? Anytime you have mutaghayyir bi tahirihi, i.e. it changes its taste, smell, or color, then that's when it's considered tahir. I'll give you an example. If the tap water is broken somewhere down the line and there's sand, it's still considered pure. This happens a lot. If you haven't had broken tap water, you see the sand comes in, it's still considered pure because sand itself is still pure. But let's say you have za'fran or something, or so rust is a little tricky. No, it's not pure. I was talking about like when you have sand coming in, dirt, that's overlooked. It's because dirt itself we can use to purify ourselves. Musta'mal, so any time that is used to raise your water, i.e. the water that's dropping from your wudu. I don't think anybody does this, but it's just for you to understand the concept. The water that's dropping from your, let's say if somebody collected it, you can use that water again to do wudu. It's pure, but it's not purifying. Okay? Najas, obviously if some impurity fell into it, in this case as you see, and mulaqatu bin najas is something in and of itself is impure, or if water is, let's say it meets a body that is, if it's impure, again that body, let's say if it's water, would become impure again. Okay, now one of the things, yes.
So like if the water has some chemicals.
Chemical is not, so let's say chlorine. I'll give you it's Egypt. When I was in Egypt, mashallah, the water is full of chlorine. Chlorine is considered, this I specifically asked because when I went to Egypt, I noticed I felt like I was washing myself with chlorine. It felt like I was in a swimming pool. Usually these things are overlooked. They're overlooked. We're talking about chemicals. It can be in a state of tahir, but not mutahhir. Is that clear? But chlorine is overlooked. Specifically because if you're in certain countries, the water, it's let's say desalination plants, when they're giving you water in a certain area,